new year. Welcome to 2017. Love doing these calls. Every Tuesday we bring the best of the best into a special community. Over the holiday, I was just thinking how grateful I am to have my role, representing Mortgage Coach, serving you. We've got the most successful loan officers in America in our tribe. And to me, when I think of, success, it's not just people that are financially successful doing lots of production. They're folks that are just serving families at a higher level. So super grateful for my role. Hope you had a great holiday. Every Tuesday I'm here to share ideas, interview people that are amazing, to help you be more successful and help us all deliver more value to families and agents. So another unique and special call. I've got Mr. Todd Bookspan with me. Todd and I we are doing a lot of coaching together. Can you believe how many times we've been on the call together lately?
It's a little bit crazy. I have to feel a tremendous honor that I got to close out 2016 with you, and that I'm getting to kick off 2017 with you and all the gang who've joined us. So thank you so much. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, no, it's an honor, and I'm so grateful for all the time you've dedicated to the Insane Productivity Project. Many of you know, some of you I can see who's on the call. A lot of you are part of the Insane Productivity for Mortgage Coach group. But Todd has, you've just invested so many hours and so much passion. So thanks, Todd. We're going to, this is where we're going to bring some insane productivity strategies into the call. Today's call will be centered around building teams, high-performing, high-production teams. So that will be what we're talking about. We'll be doing Q&A. So if you have a question that you want to ask Todd Bookspan, post it in chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll bring these questions in. By the way, Todd, I want to do some updates, but before I do that, there might be some folks on this call that they don't know your backstory. So would you mind just how much? I know you're a full-time coach with Building Champions now, which is something that's new. But if you could just let everybody know your production level, so they kind of know what you bring to the table as an advisor when it comes to building teams.
Sure. I'm a 15-year veteran of the mortgage business, and I started off 2016 doing just what all of you are doing, in the seat, taking loan applications and running our team. And mid-year, I decided to make the jump full-time into being a coach with Building Champions, which has been just a blast, really a dream come true to be helping others grow personally and professionally. That's been a lot of fun, and I still retain my role as the chairman of the Bookspan Baker team. And so our team finished up the year about 540 units, just under 120 million in production. And I'm just really proud of the team, because ultimately, if you rewind to 2015, we did comparable numbers, but I was our biggest producer. And so really decided to make that switch in the beginning of the second quarter. And so that gave me 90 days to get the team dialed in, get the roles clearly defined, get processes in place, so that once I started coaching full time, I could just pull out 100% from the day-to-day, stop talking to clients, and let the team do their thing. So very proud of the fact that the team, really killed it, and proud of the fact that the execution was there, and excited to share any and all of that today.
Right on. So any questions for Todd Bookspan, bring it on as it relates to building a team. So a couple updates from Mortgage Coach to kick off the new year. Some of you have noticed this. I got text messages. I was Facebooked over the holidays, so some of you already know. But January 1st, we had a significant update to our mobile app. This is for the iOS, so for an Apple. If you've got an Apple, your app updated. Make sure you download it. And there's a lot of new capabilities within it, but the big one is the ability to create and edit a total cost analysis from your mobile phone or your tablet. So I know some of you have Android phones, but you have an Apple tablet. You have this functionality now. So you can go in, and whether it's edit and update the total cost analysis from your mobile device or create it. I mean, this is a big deal. We've already had the best consumer experience. So if you're a home buyer or you're looking to refinance, Mortgage Coach mobile app is the best consumer-facing app. And I think we've had the best app from a loan officer's usage perspective. I don't know of any other apps that are downloaded more than ours. that are used more than ours. I don't even think there's anything that compares. But this just further cements Mortgage Coach as the #1 mobile app for mortgage professionals. So download it, check it out. And Todd, I don't know about you, but do you think your team's going to like this new one?
Absolutely, because they're on the go, right? I mean, the one thing that I know about a lot of loan officers today is they're not sitting in front of a desk and have a laptop available to go. And the fact that, now they can do it all from their mobile device is huge. I love it.
Cool. So if you have downloaded it and you've already used it, I would love to get your feedback. Please share that either on Facebook, on social, LinkedIn, or email me at Dave@MortgageCoach. We want to hear what you think of this feature, and we're excited to bring it to market. I also want to remind everybody that we're going to be kicking off the new year next Tuesday, 10 o'clock. So immediately following our regular 9 a.m. call, I will be interviewing Darren Hardy, take it to the next level. So Darren's putting a lot of thought into how he can help loan officers and realtors crush it in 2017. So don't miss that interview. And this is an interview to not only join yourself, invite your entire team, and even invite a realtor or referral partner. Todd, any comments on that? I know you're invited to provide some content in that call. Anything else you think we should say to everybody?
I always look forward to it. I've never left a call that Darren's been on where I haven't taken notes. And I think there's some people who always think, oh, I've heard it all before. I know Darren's going to tailor it, sounds like, to the mortgage industry and specifically. And I just know there's always going to be huge value. So I would definitely encourage everyone to be there.
Right on. And a couple more updates. I posted this morning. It's a post in LinkedIn. I'll put a link to that in the chat in case you can't find it on LinkedIn. But when I'm thinking about how I can help the Mortgage Coach community just kill it in 2017, and what does that mean to do well, especially when it comes to realtors? I mean, it really means you need to beat your competition. Let's face it, every loan officer in America is going to be calling on every realtor in America. And my goal is pretty simple. I want the Mortgage Coach loan officer to crush their competition. I want you guys, you go head-to-head for a loan, you win. You go head-to-head with a realtor to get a referral, Mortgage Coach loan officer wins. And when I think of what are the ideas and strategies that you need to have, I think coming into January, everybody needs to know how to have the cost of waiting conversation. So I have been collecting these. I showcased in this blog post a cost of waiting from Wally Elderberry out of Dallas, Texas, and I showcased Jeremy Forcier's cost of waiting analysis. Although I can tell you we have collected dozens of these, and I've already seen people make comments on this blog post, sharing others. So the goal is just get better, deliver this cost of waiting conversation at a level of excellence. And so check out this blog post. I'll put a link to it in chat. Todd, anything you want to provide, any content you have on this strategy?
Well, you made the comment that every realtor is going to be hit up by every loan officer. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that anyone who did a great job on refinancing their past clients last year potentially has some gaps in some other realtor relationships. And if you've done a great job with your best referral partners, just know that the best referral partners are going to be having their door knocked on every day. And so I think anything that we can do as a community to educate them. Many of you might have listened to the Steve Harney call recently where he talked about his projection for 2017, and he really talked about the fact that this cost of waiting is going to be one of the biggest keys that he sees to get people off the fence to buy. And so what a great tool to bring to your realtors to have them mention to their clients as a referral back to you to help them with this analysis. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for those of you looking to grow your realtor base, because we know the small percent. We know that of great loan officers, a high percentage use Mortgage Coach, but we know as the overall community of loan officers across the country, they don't. And so you're going to be bringing them something they haven't seen.
Absolutely. So one other ask I have for everybody is share this. There's a button right here. You can share it with other agents. You can share it with other loan officers in your company. We want to bring this message to the entire Mortgage Coach community. And I would also love any comments you have. You can see already we've had a couple loan officers, Doug, Brad, post. Oh, Jen has posted a sample. So we would love to collect a bunch of total cost analysis links. So please share a total cost analysis link in comments, because we are trying to collect some of the best TCAs we can to help the mortgage coach loan officer completely crush it. One last thing before I move off that strategy. If you go to our website, you go to Connect, you go to Total Cost Analysis, most of you know this, some of you may not, we have a place where we collect real-world mortgage coach conversations. So if you click on the picture, it will be an actual mortgage coach with a mortgage coach strategy. So just want to put awareness around this particular page. We will be updating this with some of the more relevant and new stuff that's coming in, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of that page. So Todd, let's transition. Let's get into the conversation about teamwork. I did a blog post a couple days ago where I posted a lot of questions that have come in, and these were also questions that I did in preparation for the Insane Productivity call that we did. So again, if you have a question, post it. But Todd, let's just get started with, why does a mortgage producer want to have a team? Why build a team?
I think there's a bunch of different ways to answer that, and it's always going to be a personal why. But for us, for me, it was to impact more families, and then it was also to allow me personally in my day to do the pieces of the process that were the highest and best use of my time, really the things that I was passionate about. And I started off just like the rest of you, doing everything myself from start to finish. But I started off part-time, and I was the first person at the company I worked at to hire an assistant. And I was a student getting my MBA. I was a stay-at-home dad part-time, and I stumbled in the mortgage business, and I hired another stay-at-home mom friend of mine, and I let her be the person who highlighted the 1003 where people can sign. I let her manage my database because I hated doing those things. And so, normally what you're going to find if you're going to try to impact more people is you're going to have to grow the infrastructure and grow that ability. And then you also know that there's just things either you're not good at that you're forced to do every day, or that you are good at, but it'd be a lot easier to pay somebody else to do that same job for you. And so for me, it just came down to, as a loan officer, I felt I was really great at giving the client consultation, right? Really helping clients with that consultation. I thought I was really great at business development and building relationships with the people out there that we wanted to do business with. And then I felt that I was really great at coaching them and helping them figure out how to grow their businesses. And so, to quote the Insane Productivity stuff we've been doing, those were my vital three. Those are the things that I spent my time on. And that's what I was passionate about. That's what I really enjoy doing. And you just have to continue to follow that. And so going forward, then that turned away from the client consultation, and I took that and I added into the loan officer coaching piece. And then that's obviously grown into my transition to building champions. But I think for most people, it's a similar path down one of those pieces. The last thing I would throw in there is that if you are working with the biggest real estate agents right now, they're all growing teams as well. And you also sometimes have to grow to survive. If you're working with an agent and their team outgrows you, then you're going to lose that agent. And so it's also been a really unique selling proposition for our team, is that we went after the biggest real estate teams, and we showed them that we had a team that was actually had the capabilities to be able to service their size and their growth. And we've continued that push into 2017. A couple of the big teams that we work with, their goal is to double their business in 2017. And so our team had to make a commitment that we were going to double down and grow with them. And so, ultimately there's so many different reasons why you may want to do it, but, really in the end, at some point you're going to have the ceiling of complexity where, you've got a number of loans, whether it's 20 or 30 or 50 that you can actually do. That's the number of families you can help, which is great. If that's sufficient to you and that's your why, then you're set. If you feel like, hey, gosh, I hear these people doing 100 families every year, you got, people doing 300, 500, 800 families a year, then obviously that's going to take some scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to push a quick poll question. Want to get a sense of who's on this call. Do you have a team? So I have just pushed a poll question. If it's just you, click the first option. And then obviously if you've got 2 people on your team, and let's make it including yourself. So if it's you and someone else, that's 2. If it's you and 2 other people, that's 3. So by the way, 54% of you have voted. Would really like to have 80% of you vote. So we're at 60%. The more of you vote, the more Todd and I can serve you for the next 45 minutes of this call. So we're at 66%. Come on, guys, just a few more votes. So we're almost there. A couple more votes. You holding out? Okay, we hit 70. So Todd, I don't know. I'm not going to ask you to guess out loud, but here are the results of who's on the call. 47% said just me. 31% have themselves and an assistant. Interesting that, there's kind of like 4 is no man's land, only 3%, and then 6% have 5+ people on their team. So that's really good to know. Any comments on that, Todd?
Well, no, it's really interesting because I definitely see some of the names who are on the call, and I know some of the people have monster teams, which is great to see them there, and it's great to see about half of you that are just you and looking to grow a team, because I do think that that's the hardest part, is that first hire, right? It's taking that risk, and oftentimes in a market like we're heading into, people are concerned about production. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I was 50% refi next year, and I think it's going to be a year where a lot of people double down and take that risk and bring on that first assistant and really blow it up.
Yep. And so, hey, here's one more question, and it's important everybody answers this because it's really going to help Todd and I, 1, tailor the questions, and 2, throw a bullseye. We need to know how much production you did. So if you did less than 30 loans, we need to know it. If you did around 60, which is around 5 a month, let us know. If you did around 100, if you did around 150, and if you did more than 200, we need to know. So I'm going to require that we get to 70%, and right now only 50% of you have voted. So please, let's match that last round with 70% of you voting with your production levels. This will help Todd and I craft a conversation. Todd, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just thinking about it. I got to imagine again. I'm going to predict that we're going to be well majority 60 and below, because we've got a lot of solo teams, and I always hear about the loan officers doing 100 loans by themselves, and it always scares me because it tells me one of 2 things. It scares me because they worked way too hard, or it tells me that they had other people engaged around them that they didn't consider, quote unquote, their team, maybe a processor who helped them, or some other support from a branch. But I would say that's the other why. I mean, for me early on, it was quality of life. I started getting coached by Building Champions in 2003, and that was one of my top 2 were I wanted to be home 4 nights a week for dinner with my family, and I wanted to take more vacations. I didn't really define what it was at that time. And then third was I wanted to make more money. That wasn't my driving force for growing the team, but it really came back to I had to have a team if I was going to get home for dinner. I had 2 young kids at the time, and a third that arrived shortly after starting the business. And then I remember, one year at Salesmaster, Bill Hart interviewed me, and it was right as the financial crisis was happening, and I had taken 50 days of vacation the previous 2 years with no cell phone. He thought I was one of the most balanced loan officers in the country, and I kind of had to admit from the stage that the market was shifting and that I wasn't quite as balanced because I was rebuilding my business at the time. For me, that was all around team and adding that first hire in there to come in and just take that stuff off my plate that I just flat out didn't have time to do if I was going to work, quote unquote, a normal day.
Right on. Well, makes sense. So Todd, here are the results with how many people on their team. You can check it out. And then what were the production results? So
I'm not surprised by that. Are you, Dave?
No, not at all. The only thing I can say is I am just dedicated to every mortgage coach loan officer closing over 60 loans a month. I mean, I do think that, when you get north of 60 loans a month, there's a commitment to success that is uncommon. And when you are closing over 100 loans consistently, and then when you get over the 150, I mean, there's just a commitment to success that is uncommon. But I do believe every mortgage coach loan officer, if everybody on this call who's closing less than 60 loans a month literally, if you just started delivering a total cost analysis to every single family that you serve, I, I believe that 98% of you would be there, because not only would you crush it when you're in those situations with a better presentation, but you would just get better at presenting. And let's face it, the best and most effective mortgage professionals are the ones that have the most effective conversations with clients and partners. So I don't want to oversimplify it, but I believe it with all my heart. Everybody on this call that's doing, less than 60 loans a month, you could just change that by delivering a total cost analysis to every family you serve. So Todd, I would love to just get some feedback from you on, when to build a team. How much production should you be doing before you add that first assistant, and anything you could tell, because obviously we have such a big portion of the call that don't have a team, or they only have one person. I mean, that's 70%, 80% of who's on the call. So when do we add team members, and how do we get started?
Well, I think it's always the start for me is having a crystal clear process, because if you don't have a crystal clear process that's written out with what that looks like from when the call comes in to after the loan closes and you set up that client and whatever your client for life process is, if you don't have a crystal clear process, it's hard to hire, because whoever you hire isn't going to know what you're hiring them for. And so for me, early on when it was just me, is I wrote out what that process was. And for me at that time, I actually wrote it out, and I divided that process as if I had this huge team already that I didn't have. And it included someone who did marketing and business development. It included, someone who just managed the contract to close portion of the transaction. It included all these different defined pieces. My first hire had to do multiple versions, pieces in there. My first hire, that was full-time. I had that person I mentioned that did just some marketing and some basic stuff. My first hire was someone who came in and was really a loan processor, but she'd also done a short stint as a loan officer, so she was comfortable with the phone calls. She just didn't have any desire to go out and hunt relationships, hunt clients. But once she was on the phone with a client that was already engaged with us, she had great rapport. And so for me, that time frame, I just knew it was I was over 5 loans a month consistently. I felt like I could afford to take the financial hit of bringing on a guaranteed salary. Originally, my initial goal in my head was, if I had my own loan processor that only worked on my loans, I could push more of the loan officer responsibilities on her. Of course, my company said, no, you can't do that. Number one, no one else has their own loan processor. And number two is you can't push more responsibilities onto them. And so I took this candidate that I had, and I kind of defined that role. And really, for me at that time, it was taking somebody and just putting her mainly on the front end to help me with the paperwork and help me with the running a file through DU. Like, I'd never have run a file DU in my whole career, just not in my skill set. And then a little bit of communication with the processor to the transaction management, but we kind of had to leave the processor on their own for that. And then I was still the marketing guy. I was still the guy that was doing the client for life and doing those other pieces. But ultimately, as I had this crystal clear process in my mind, and that changed over time, right? It changed as with companies changing, it changed with TRID. I mean, every time something happens significant in industry, there's going to be changes in that process. But ultimately, it made it easier for me to hire. At Building Champions, we're big proponents of DISC, which is the behavioral analysis. You guys, I don't know if you've covered that in any calls before or not, but most people that you hire to do back-end stuff in the mortgage process aren't quite like we are as driven salespeople, right? We're all high I's and high D's in that part. We're all extroverts. We love talking to people. We're really outgoing, and we're typically disorganized with paperwork and everything else. You flip it over to your loan processors and underwriters and people with those, what they call SC, behavioral analysis. They're typically introverts. Not that they can't hold a conversation. It's just not what they love to do. And so by having a crystal clear process, I was able to bring someone in for an interview. I was able to show them what my vision was for my team. Hey, here's what I'm trying to grow. wanted them to be part of that if they wanted to be. And then second, I showed them what that job description looked like. And then over time, when I got that first hire and we were busy enough, we were doing 10, 12 loans a month, I said, okay, let's look at the job description. What is it that she was good at all of it. I said, what is it that you really like to do? So the same thing I did with myself. I took the things that I really like to do and I kept it. I kept the things that I didn't really like to do and I gave it away. I said, what would you like us to hire for next? And then we were able to take that job description and split it. And so ironically, if you look at the team today, it's pretty similar to the team that I envisioned, back more than a dozen years ago when I first started working with a coach and really looked at what that vision was. Again, there's been little curves here and there, right? Sometimes you think this is what the job description looks like, but the person that you have on your team who's great doesn't quite fit that exactly. And, he or she gives away one piece of that to somebody else. But overall, you're going to grow along to whatever plan you put. And I think if you listen to, I gave a homework assignment last time. There's so many great calls in the Mortgage Coach library that Dave has. And there's a lot of great calls around teams. And if you put it on your homework sheet to listen to some of those, and I kind of practice what I preach, I've been listening to a call every day since last week, and listen to some of those calls. There's other great calls with great team leaders who talk about their team. And so just because somebody does it one way doesn't mean that's the best way for you. The cool thing about the interviews Dave has done is you can listen to people from all different parts of the country with all different size teams talk about how they've done it, and just find a model that you think works for you, swipe and adapt it. I don't think there's too many secrets in the mortgage business, and go down that path. And then worst case is you go down the wrong path and you have to tweak it. But if you can find something that seems like it's pretty close to start, then, you can start there and then you can kind of start adapting as you go through. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, it does. And so, by the way, folks, anybody that's watching on the screen, I went to a playlist where it's got 9, recordings to calls that I've done on team building. The most recent one was the call that I did with Danny Harani and Michelle Town. Both are doing over $100 million in production. This was just a couple weeks ago. I put a link to this call. And then, of course, Tim Brahim's Perfect Loan Process, one of the best all-time mortgage coach calls. There's a lot of value in here. So, we're not going to get to every question, but anybody that wants to build a team, I want to bring leadership to you from the best of the best. And Todd clearly is the best of the best. So, Todd, I've had some questions come in on GoToWebinar. Some of them are comp related. I don't want to get directly into hey, this is what the comp should be. But I also want to tell people how to get to that, whether there's a report available. I always tell people, look at someone who's incredibly successful. Obviously, I've interviewed some of the most successful people, and, message them through Facebook, send them a private message. One of the most valuable things I ever got from going to a sales mastery or, the mastermind event were the relationships I created with people that I respected, who I wanted to model my business after, and the conversations at the pool. So, who do you want to model? And, ask them one-on-one, But Todd, any guidance for people that they want to figure out the right way to comp an assistant without saying, hey, here's the dollar amount, here's the comp? Any advice or any resources for folks that have that question?
I think you hit the nail on the head. The one thing that I found early on as a brand new loan officer is I reached out to the people that I saw up on stage at these events thinking there's no way they're ever going to make time for me. And I was blown away at how many people were willing to, engage with me via email. Most of them would be willing to hop on a 30-minute phone call. And so, certainly feel free to start. Well, you can reach out to me, but I would reach out to some of the other people that you've seen featured here. The biggest thing you have to remember about comp, and my wife and I opened up 4 branches when we ran Arizona for a company, and comp within your market, you probably all know, is all over the board, but it's super different across the country. So when you start seeing these people with closing $500,000 loans in the West Coast or Pacific Northwest or New York, as a general rule, they probably have lower comp than somebody who's closing $200,000 loans on average. So you have to keep that in mind as you're looking at it and really think it through as a percentage of your total revenue of a loan, what's appropriate for your market. what's appropriate for experience level. And oftentimes you're really going to have to look at what else could this person do? So if you're trying to hire someone who's got loan processing experience to be your loan production partner, he or she probably has a salary expectation that's comparable to what they would make in your market if they were a processor. And so think through that part. I mean, the one thing that we all have this gift of when you're in the loan business is you can make a lot of money, and at the same time, you want to pay what's appropriate. I always say it's a lot easier to give someone a raise than it is to pull back income. And so that's, the other piece that I would look at. But it's a little bit dangerous probably to talk in any more specific than that on a call this size, just because we've got such a diverse group. But, ultimately, and then I think the biggest thing is it's got to be A, what you can afford, B, what's appropriate for the market, and C, certainly see if there's any shared resources to start with in your company. I do see a lot of times where someone's got an assistant they share with the branch manager in their branch, or an assistant they share with 3 other loan officers, someone who could do some loan setup or someone that could take off your plate, and see if there's any opportunity for that or any other support from your company as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, another resource, your internal company, obviously. So here's a question that came in. And I think there's a lot of folks that have this question. This is someone who's, doesn't have an assistant. I'm just going to read it to represent, kind of the energy behind it. But how do I get to the point where I have a team just starting out by myself without killing myself? My company requires me to do 30 million in production, but I did 12 million to 13 million. I don't want to work 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. What advice do you have for me?
That's always a tough one, and I don't know, maybe they can throw in there real quick what their average loan size is. I don't know if 30 million in production for them is 60 loans, or whether it's only 30 loans, but my gut is it's probably closer to 60 loans or more. I think the biggest key is first off, it always comes back to setting your own schedule. I will tell you that there was times where when the market was shifting, when rates dropped, or when there was big opportunity where I had to go out of bounds, right, where I didn't live to my life plan, where I had to ask permission of my wife and my kids to say, hey, you know what, I'm actually only going to be home 3 times a week for dinner for the next 30 days or 60 days or whatever that was. I typically didn't go longer than that. I did 90 days once, and my wife called it the 90-day burnout. She didn't really love that too much, and I was kind of exhausted afterwards. But I think you just have to set up your schedule, and then that's what you're going to be telling people, right? We all know that realtors think we all work 24/7, and your availability is going to determine what they expect of you and what they do. And not that I don't think any top loan officer can say that no agent ever reached out to him on a weekend with a question or something like that. That's just normal as you become friends with people. However, if you're super proactive in your day, if you're time blocking and you're setting up all of the things that you need to do, then you can build your schedule around proactive outbound activities with time to be reactive, so that you can work within hopefully an 8-hour day, or maybe you do have to do 3 hours on a Saturday to make people happy, but let people know what that schedule looks like. I always say, if you're working by yourself, that it's not a bad idea to set up your schedule to where you're your own assistant. And what I mean by that is that why not set up that from 8 to 10 in the morning is when you download your loan applications, you pull credit, you create your TCAs for your clients, you are running DU, you're asking, reaching out and asking for documentation. And during that time, you're not taking inbound calls from people. You're just truly focused on what Darren Hardy would call a jam session in St. Protivia, just in a jam session of doing those activities. And maybe some days that's only an hour, maybe some days it's 3 hours, but you just say, hey, that's what I do in the morning. And then you have your afternoon set up, where during your afternoon is when you have your realtor consultations and your client consultations. And so if you build your schedule around that and you really protect that time and you live that schedule, you can squeeze a lot more in. Where I tend to find loan officers working the 12, 14 hours a day is because they don't really plan their day. They're not proactive. They're just reacting all day. So they're get in the office, they don't have a plan, and they look at their email first, and then they just start calling off the first one, and you're just really running your day based off of everyone else's urgencies and their crises. And, that does happen sometimes. Every once in a while a loan is having a problem at funding and you've got to jump out of your schedule to get there. But I would say that you could spend 90% of your time being proactive and doing what you want to do, when you want to do it. If you would look at my calendar from earlier in 2016 when I was doing loans still, my mornings were blocked off. They were blocked off until 11:30, and that was all proactive outbound calling. I always loved Bill Hart, who's a coach at Building Champions, wrote an article years ago called the by noon effect. And, my goal was to get my day done by noon. And so that was outbound, proactive. Nobody could schedule anything for me. When you run a large team, people have access to your calendar and they can start throwing things on there. And so what I did was I just blocked out all the time where I was doing proactive activities for my vital few metrics that I was measuring for myself. And then after that, they could do whatever they wanted. If they wanted me to, meet with a team leader or a realtor or go to a lunch with a client or whatever it was, they could schedule around that time. But I protected my day. The other part of my day I protected was 30 minutes at the end of the day so that I could clear email and return voicemails and be reactive to that. But ultimately, if you emailed me between 11:30 and 4:30, it was unlikely that you were going to get a response from me till 4:30 when I sat down and did that. So ultimately, it's a long-winded way of saying you've got to own your day, right? Plan your day and when you're going to do which activities, and then plan what days you're going to do those activities so that you can make sure that you're living your schedule and not living somebody else's.
Love it. So, by the way, everybody, I just posted a link to Bill Hart's By Noon Effect video in chat. I mean, it's an absolute must. I've interviewed, countless of the nation's most successful loan officers, and I don't think I'm oversimplifying this when I say it to everyone on this call that's under 60 loans a month, and even everyone who's in the 60 that wants to go to 100. If you really got serious around protecting your day before 11 o'clock, and you really got serious about achieving your prospecting goals, Todd called it my outbound campaign, AKA prospecting, and you really got serious that every family that you serve get a total cost analysis. If you just did those two things, you would be, crushing it, so anyone that has that is in that kind of that no man's land, and it's tough. It's tough, but I do think that the two most important things you can do are protect your day by noon and make sure that prospecting is part of what you're doing by noon every day. Bill also has a term called, is it eat the frog? Some folks prospecting is fun, like Jeremy Forcier. I swear that guy loves cold calling. I mean, it's fun for him, but not everybody is it fun for, so eat the frog. Get your prospecting in, make sure every family you serve gets your absolute best presentation, and I just can't imagine that you would not take your business to another level. So Todd, by the way, Todd, anything you want to add to that before I ask another question?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The thing I forgot to mention in my biography is the thing that I used to think you got tired of hearing it, but now I know you don't. But I literally got mortgage coach on my first day in the mortgage business. I had never stepped in the office. The first day they had me go to a Mortgage Originator Magazine seminar, and I heard someone talk about mortgage coach, and I convinced the company to buy it. We split the cost. I hadn't even made $1 yet in the mortgage business, but I invested in mortgage coach, and I agree. I mean, it truly, again, it's a differentiator between you and everyone else, not just with clients, but with your referral partners. So, that's one thing I would add. Yeah.
And I just can't emphasize it enough. Get that prospecting in, have the discipline. I did a call. I can't remember who it was with, but it was just all about winning the day, and winning the day is you're hitting your prospecting goal. It's delivering your absolute best presentation, and then the number 3 metric. Darren calls it your critical few and your top 3. When I interview top producers, they almost all have the first 2 in common, prospecting and their borrower presentation at a level of excellence. And then the third one, it does vary. Jeremy, in my last interview with him, said my number 3 was to be involved in every celebration. But just get clear on your critical few, the 3 things that matter most. If you do them every day and you win every day, you'll be doing 100 loans a month. 100 loans a year. So here's another question that came in, Todd. I think it's interesting. It's on people's mind. You mentioned you had a coach. So when and how is the best time to hire a coach as it relates to building a team? How would you answer that?
It's a tough one because, again, just like I bought Mortgage Coach when I couldn't afford it, I got a coach when I couldn't afford it either. I worked at a company that was the number one company in Arizona at the time, and everyone there kind of thought I was an idiot. They're like, well, why do you need a coach? Like, you're in business. This isn't football or anything like that. But it goes back to Tim Brahim, who you mentioned before. He had a product at the time called Loan Toolbox, and I heard an interview with Daniel Harkavy, the founder of Building Champions, and it was entitled Get Out of the Back Seat and Drive. And it really just talked about what we were just talking about earlier, where, you wake up, you've got this great idea that you're going to go in and you're going to own your day. And then, as soon as you get in the car, you go to get in the front seat to drive, and, a realtor calls you with a problem with a client. And then really his point is then you're in the back seat and somebody else is driving. You're letting that realtor drive you. And then, all right, you finish that call and then you think you're going to get back in the front seat and drive. And then your processor calls you the problem and you're in the back seat and your processor's driving. And so for me, it just resonated that that's how my day was as a loan officer. And even though at the time I had a full-time assistant, it still I wasn't doing my best that I could do. And so, I went back and said, all right, I'm going to invest in myself. And Darren Hardy, if you guys have any of you listen to Darren Daily, it was in his Darren Daily from this morning, I think, or yesterday morning, one of the two, where he talks about reinvesting 10% of your income back into yourself. And so for me, it started out where it was a little bit more than that, but quickly it became less than 10% that I was investing in that piece. At that point that I got a coach, I was less than 2 years in the mortgage business. I wasn't closing much more than $10 million a year. And, I just knew for me, I needed that extra level of accountability, and I needed somebody who had a little bit more wisdom by having access to more people and more data. So I needed somebody who would hold my feet to the fire and say, okay, write out what that vision looks like, right? Write out what that business plan is for the next quarter. And then also someone who I could say, gosh, you know what? I'm really struggling. I wish I had a better realtor script for, a campaign for going after realtors. And he could say, you know what? Here's two of them that that I had clients share with me that I'm allowed to share with you. Click, click, click. And, I could hear him typing on his keyboard and they would show up in my email. So I got a lot of that. And so even today, I still have a coach. And I think that if you listen to every one of the top producer interviews that you've ever done, I got to imagine 99+% of those people have coaches. And, it's just one of those things where I think you always can grow, and most people can't hold themselves to the standards that they really want to hold themselves to. So just having someone else to help lead you is always a great way to go.
So great answer. So folks, we're at we've got 18 minutes left in this call. I've got 23 questions listed on the Facebook post that I promoted today's call on. If there's a question you want to make sure I ask Todd before this party is over, please let me know. Post it in the questions, and I am monitoring that right now. And I'm sure we'll get to at least 2 or 3 more questions before it's over. But Todd, let's face it. If someone's closing 3 loans, and there was a lot of folks on our call that are not at the 6 loan mark, and so maybe hiring a coach is just it's either tough, it's either financially difficult, or there's just something they're not ready to do it. I do know getting an accountability partner, and kind of declaring some simple goals and getting an accountability partner is a great strategy. So any narrative you could provide for folks that I'm with you, Todd. I think if you're not hitting your goals, and even if you are, the best of the best. Josh Meadows, one of the most successful loan officers in America, always has a coach, and I heard that you're his new coach. But for someone that's just not going to hire a coach, but they're willing to get an accountability partner, what advice do you have? How to go about that?
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier. Look in your company, and see who's there. One of the things that I continually find is when I'm talking to my coaching clients is they've all reached out to the top producers in their own company, and they're always willing to love them up and give them feedback, which I think is really great. And they may not have time to be your accountability partner. In fact, they probably don't. But I would find someone else in your world, whether it's at your company or a friend at another company, who has the same motivations as you, who has the same desire to grow that you have, and see if that person will meet with you for coffee to sit down and make a plan and then hold each other accountable. I can tell you the level of accountability that my team has is pretty high. So at 8:45 every day, the loan officers on our team are on a call reporting their numbers. And so they're reporting the activities that they had in a day. Because the one thing I think that you probably all should be looking at, whether you're at 3 loans or 300 loans, is right knowing what are those activities, what are your vital metrics that you're going to measure. And one of the things that I took on, I had a loan officer on my team. He's been on the team for 5 years. He's 60, he's seasoned, and he just said, I just want to know, Todd, how much money do I make every time I pick up the phone? And the funny thing is that because for the last few years we've tracked all of his activity, how many calls he's made to partners, how many calls he's made to leads and clients, how many quality conversations he had, how many people he's met with live, and we can track conversion rates from lead to application to pre-approved, and pre-approved to close. So most people track leads to apps to close. We added in the pre-qualified because in Arizona, where it's our primary market, credit's not that good. And so depending on the relationship will determine how much bad credit they have. So we wanted to pull out the bad credit piece. But I can tell you that for Mick, he has to make 35 calls a day, outbound calls a day, and he'll hit his financial goals for 2017 because he knows what those vital metrics are. And so he went as far as to request that he gets a calendar made for himself that's got the number 35 every day so he can cross it off. Other loan officers on the team, it's a lot higher. I got 3 loan officers that miraculously have the same number of calls, 48 calls, but each have a different goal for the year, but they each need to make 48 outbound calls, which tells me that their goal's higher than Mick's or the conversion rate is lower, which in this case is the way that it is. So I would go back and look at just from your own business, if you haven't been tracking your numbers, start now. I've got a tracking form, so if anyone pings me, I can get you the tracking form that I've used myself for the last few years and my team uses. But ultimately think through what that looks like and then start tracking your conversion rates. And those are the things to hold yourself accountable to with this accountability partner. The people who don't make good accountability partners are your team members, because team members, especially if they work for you, they're not going to be able to say, whoa, you're not doing it. Your spouse, that's probably not a good accountability partner. Sometimes you can go to a manager in your office. Again, it's a little bit more difficult. Most of them want to be your accountability partner. Some of them can or can't be, so think through that, but they're always a good option as well. But ultimately, it comes back to think about what you're going to measure. And I always say that the number one thing you can do to increase your production is to increase your activity, because in the end, that's going to dictate it. And I know, of course, some of you are saying, well, but who do I call? And then I just say, you know what, there's 1,000 realtors in your market, and there's no rhyme or reason to who you should or shouldn't call. Certainly you can find people that you know and like, but that's where I'd be starting this year, is with my realtor list and decide who it is I'm going to go after once I've decided that I'm going to do more and be more for more people in 2017.
So I want to make sure we just provide complete clarity, because I do think between all the calls that we've done, folks for the most part know what they need to do. It is just getting it done. So get an accountability partner. Todd, you talked a little bit about the rhythms of accountability, and part of it is just kind of reaching out to the right people around you and say, hey, I want to be held accountable, and realizing also submitting to yourself that, what, I have not been able to hold myself accountable. I mean, if you're not closing 60 loans a month and you've been in the business for a long time, there's some things you should be doing that you're not doing, and you haven't been holding yourself accountable. So I just can't emphasize enough. You want to get value from this call, get an accountability partner. And then, Todd, if you could just really quick, I know you've already said it, but just summarize the rhythms of accountability. You mentioned a daily result review. Just, give us the checklist so that everybody on this call, they could write down this checklist, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and summarize. I want to wrap accountability around my life and execute on the critical few. What does that accountability look like? One more time.
Sure. So I've got 2 different forms. One's an activity tracker, and one's a results tracker. And the activity is partner calls and then leading client calls. Again, separated them out because they're two different calls, and those are outbound dials that a team member is doing. Then there's quality conversations, right? How many people did you actually talk to today, and have a conversation with more like, not just hello, no, I'm busy, click, right? But someone that you actually connected with live meetings, right? How many people did you actually meet with? And so those are the activities that we're doing day in and day out. And there's no right answer for everybody, because some businesses are all on the phone. Some businesses are more face-to-face. It just depends on how you're networking out there and what you need to do. And then on the results side, we're tracking leads received, applications taken, pre-qualification letters issued, and then loans closed. And then, again, our team, they all love to report that they got a contract, right? Because it's a celebration. Hey, new contract came in. And that's also something you could track, because you're going to look and see what your fallout rate is. But I don't find most people are doing that. And then again, it's just thinking through, when I say what are the activities you can do, it's not just calling new realtors, right? So, our team does update calls every Tuesday. So they have outbound calls to, 3 parties in most transactions: a buyer, a buyer's agent, a listing agent. Wednesdays they're calling all the pre-approved borrowers and checking in to see how those borrowers are doing. Thursdays they're reaching out to realtors, checking in with their realtors to see, how was your New Year's? What did you do? Great. Are you working this weekend? Is there anyone that can help? Again, goes back to that being proactive and trying not to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're reaching out to your realtors before the weekend and finding out who they might be taking out, then they're not calling you Friday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday morning, asking you to pre-qualify their borrower.
Got it. All right. So we've baked the cake on that. So now another critical activity for every mortgage coach loan officer, it's not only delivering the total cost analysis, to the families that you serve, but it's having that mortgage coach conversation with your agents, and I already kicked off the call with the cost of waiting is a critical conversation. So I want to push a quick poll question. The faster you answer it, the better. But I want to get a feel for how often are you having, pulling out the Mortgage Coach app and having a conversation with a real estate agent. So how often are you using Mortgage Coach to tell a story, explain a strategy to a real estate agent? And only about 35% of you have voted. So folks, let's get this as close to 70% as possible, so that as we wrap up today's call, I really, when it comes to building a team, what became apparent to me was that the most important thing Todd and I can help you guys do is get to the point where you can fund a team and get you to the point where you have repeatable, consistent processes that when you add another body to it, it delivers a predictable result. That is the most important thing, at least from what I can tell. So please, what percentage of the time, how often are you having that Mortgage Coach conversation? So Todd, here are the results. 50% are never having that Mortgage Coach conversation with an agent. We got to fix that. 20.
That's a big opportunity, though, right?
Yeah, right. And so, really, kind of surprising that most folks looks like I need to do a lot more training, and that needs to become something that you're doing, weekly. Any commentary on that, Todd? That really surprised me that more Mortgage Coach loan officers are not, again, pulling out your mobile app and doing cost of waiting, do rent versus own, explain your experience. What are your thoughts on that? Those results were a little lower than I thought.
I think you've got to create just a generic video, like you're talking to a generic client. Pick one of your best scenarios you did, and do this, because most of the time people are asking me, well, what do I say to a realtor? I mean, I can close loans. I want to be your loan officer. That's not really going to go too far in 2017. It's what are you going to do that's different? You're all on this call because you're Mortgage Coach users, so you already have this tool. And again, I don't want anyone to think I've got to go out there and buy tools to give to realtors to, again, do your business. I think it's really what realtors want is, we always know they want communication. They want a great experience for their clients, probably more than anything else. And this is just one thing for you to show them and give them some tools, give them a script to reach out to their clients, right? They've got to differentiate themselves too in the age of Zillow and the internet. And so giving them the fact that you can help them prepare a rent versus own, the fact that you can do the cost of waiting, these are things, if they understand it, which means you're going to have to show them an example of it. And it's a great 30-minute coffee meeting that you weren't sure what you were going to talk to them about, and now Dave just gave you a script for it. In fact, you could break that into 2 or 3 different coffee meetings and educate them, and then they're going to go out there and basically be selling you to their clients.
Yeah, and by the way, we got a lot of posts with folks saying, hey, I'd like help with that realtor conversation. So by the way, Todd, I got a lot of people asking for your result tracker. if you don't mind also forwarding that to me so I have it as a link and a resource. But so folks, in terms of help having that, call it that realtor conversation, every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock Pacific, this Wednesday being no exception, we do mobile conversation training. So that whole call is around how to use your mobile device, whether you're, having a trusted advisor story selling conversation, whether a realtor or a family is in your office, or whether you're out at coffee meetings, or whether, it's learn how to add a video to your mobile device, or whether it's, it's learn how to have Mortgage Coach app out at an open house, all the different strategies to leveraging Mortgage Coach to have better conversations with agents. A lot of the technical part of that we do in this call, and then I've done so many interviews. That's what I do on these calls is help you do it. But I would just say the big takeaway for now is just it's all about telling a story or explaining a strategy, and you're not telling people about the technology. You're just using Mortgage Coach in the app as a prop to tell a story or a strategy, and to do it in a way that makes you unique, makes you compelling. And at the end of the day, especially with the cost of waiting analysis, with interest rates going up, that's a strategy that's creating urgency. So creating urgency is something that everybody needs to know how to do in today's market. Whether you're talking to a first-time home buyer or whether you're talking to a move-up buyer, you need to know how to create urgency. So hopefully that was helpful. So we are now in the last couple minutes. Would love to know what you thought of today's call. Did we surpass your expectations with value? If you are a guest on this call and you would like to get a demo and learn more about Mortgage Coach, let us know. And then Todd, I'll let you close it out in the last 3 minutes with, what question would you like to answer for everybody as we wrap this out around building a team?
I just think it's the where to go from here. So I'll throw out a couple of resources, as maybe I should coach myself and not say it. From accountability perspective, I certainly don't have time to speak into all of you, but I would tell those of you who strike out and can't find anyone who's accountable, then once we push out the accountability tracker, everyone can make a rhythm and send it to me every Friday, and then you're kind of holding yourself accountable to me. I'll semi-volunteer myself out there. I would start looking in the Mortgage Coach community. There's so many people who post in Dave's community there all the time that are loan officers that you may or may not know, and I'd be direct messaging them on Facebook and seeing if any of them want to be your accountability partner. I think that's not a bad idea. I am, a little plug for myself, I am putting together a 2-day team building mastermind. Don't exactly have the dates pinned down. It looks like it's going to be the end of the first quarter or the beginning of second quarter, where we're going to get 8 to 12 producers from around the country together to talk about team building. It's going to be geared towards the loan officer doing between 50 and probably 150 loans, but be looking for more information on that if you want to be on the list to get that when it comes out. Again, direct message me for info there. And, really in the end, it is a real honor to be on these calls with you, Dave. I really appreciate being part of this community. I really do owe a big portion of my success as a loan officer to Mortgage Coach and using it as a tool. And, I'm really here to help you guys grow. So don't feel like you can't reach out to me. Facebook is probably the easiest way that you all find me, since Dave tags me and everything. So I'm not the best Facebook Messenger person, but nonetheless, feel free to reach out to me there or through the Building Champions website. That's my email, and that'll come to me. And, I would love nothing more than to see how I can help any of you make 2017 not just the year that you expect, but truly your best year ever.
Awesome. Well, Todd, super grateful. That was very generous. Folks, please be respectful of Todd's time. Realize he can't respond to everybody, but just him saying, hey, forward me something on Friday. I may or may not be able to respond to you, but use me as an accountability partner. That was really generous. Again, please, this article, I want to get this message out to every Mortgage Coach, because I want every Mortgage Coach loan officer to just crush their competition. So please share this. It's as simple as clicking this button, putting it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or email it. We want to get this strategy out to as many mortgage coach professionals as possible. And loan officers that are not mortgage coach professionals, we want to help get them into the community. So if you know a mortgage coach, or you know someone in your office that would make a great mortgage coach, they align with our values, please refer them to us. You know, there's a couple ways you could do that. You could just request a demo. You can introduce them to me. My email is dave@mortgagecoach.com. So if anybody wants to nominate and have someone get a demo of Mortgage Coach as we kick off the new year's, you know, email me, dave@mortgagecoach.com, introduce me, or fill out a demo request online. Anyways, hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week as you kick off the new year. Look forward to a great week, and thanks again, Todd. This call is
my pleasure, guys.
Take care, everybody.